Hello and welcome back to another video here on the Sam Hill channel. Today we're going to be talking about my Premier League 2023-24 predictions for where I think all the teams will finish this upcoming season. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Lovely, so to start off the relegation teams, we've got Sheffield United, Luton Town and Wolves to be going down in that order. I think I certainly would have had Sheffield United and Luton Town to go down at the start of the transfer window. Probably not in that order. I probably would have had them the other way round. I just think Sheffield United have had a really poor window. I think losing and and Burge, two players who would have been really big for them going into the season, is gonna hurt them. Luton Town, I don't think they've got the quality to stay up. They're sort of trying to just strengthen all round and have a strong squad all round. There's some okay and some fairly interesting players in there. Ross Barkley, Issa Kabore, Taith Chong. But I just don't see it being enough to keep them in the Premier League this season. And then Wolves. I mean, what is going on with Wolves this season? I don't think any of us would have had them anywhere near the relegation zone really this season, especially with Lopetegui at the helm. But now, they've lost Lopetegui. They've sold all of their quality players. I mean, let me just find it, just so I can make sure and reel it off. I mean, they've lost Cunha. No, sorry, they haven't lost Cunha. They've gained Cunha. They've lost Neves, Collins, Connor Cody, Raul Jimenez, Giles, Sarkic, Kundal, Chiquinho, Herva, João Moutinho, Adama Traore, Diego Costa. I mean, it's just crazy numbers. And as I mentioned at the start there, Mateus Cunha, 50 million euros they paid for him after that loan deal from Atletico Madrid. I just don't think it's going to be a good season for Wolves. I think 18 might even be kind for them. I really don't see them getting many points. And unfortunately, I see them going right back down to the Championship. Now, the next two teams I have to just about stay up in the Premier League this season is Everton and Nottingham Forest. Both these teams, I think possibly if we hadn't had Wolves where they were now, I think either one of those would have been the ones. I think Everton would have put in there just because, as a Leeds fan, I'd like to see Everton go down. But I think both of them are going to have enough to stay up. I think Forest are starting to have an identity under Cooper. They've made a couple improvements. I think this summer there was a few things I saw with possibly them owing transfer fees to clubs, and that might get a little bit messy. But I think they've made enough improvements with Elanga and Turner and stuff and Ola Aina to keep themselves in the Premier League this season again and build on last season hopefully. As for Everton, to be honest with you, like I sort of said, Everton are only really there because I think Wolves are going to be so poor. And that's sort of been the case for the last couple of seasons with Everton. They really have looked awful, but there's been somebody worse. I think losing wise, I don't think they've lost many players, but they haven't really strengthened either. I think Everton might stay up under Dyke, but I certainly don't think it will be convincing, and I certainly don't think it will be another good season for Everton. Lovely, and then the next two teams I have in 15th and 14th is Crystal Palace and Brentford in that order, two London sides. Palace, I'll start with Palace. I think Palace have sort of gone nowhere this season. They've lost Zaha, but I think this is a good time to lose him. They've brought in Lerma, which I think is a really good bit of business. And other than that, they've got rid of a few of their sort of older players. Not really brought in anyone else. It looks like they're going to lose Gaeta in goal, but I think Sam Johnston's a good enough keeper to be sure enough in there. I just think it's another unexciting season for Palace under Hodgson and maybe one that they can build from for the future. If they lose Elise, then maybe it's a slightly worse finish, but at the moment I've got Palace finishing 15th. And then Brentford. I think Brentford are going to quite struggle under Tony. I mean, they always seem to make good business. And every time we sort of think, is this the season is this player really going to perform? Is this player really going to perform? And they do. The issue with this season is Nathan Collins, Kevin Sade, Mark Flecken. Flecken obviously is a replacement for Raya, who's been really, really good for them in a couple of seasons. Everyone talks about Ivan Toney, but he's been one of their most important players. I think Nathan Collins is a decent player, and we let to sort of see everything from Sade, but I just don't see Brentford being the same team and being able to play how they want to play in the Premier League. I'd love to be wrong. I like what Brentford are doing, but I don't see them getting any more than 14th place. In the 13th and 12th position, I've got the two Claret and Blues, Burnley below West Ham. Starting with Burnley, Burnley under company, coming up from the Premier League. What a season that was for them, and I think they've made some really good signings so far this season. Like I mentioned earlier, Burge from Sheffield United. They've brought in James Trafford in from City. I think they've got a really good team, and they had a strong team anyway. So it'd be nice to see them possibly do something under company and play some nice football. I think we tend to have one newly promoted team that does quite well, and I think that will be Burnley this season. And then with the other Claret and Blue, with West Ham, I just don't see West Ham having the quality to get another sort of European finish that they got last season. Or the season before. Again, I think they've lost Declan Rice. I don't think Samaka and Vlasic going is a particular hurt towards them, but it's not going to help. And then they haven't really strengthened much at the moment. And then there's talks of Harry Maguire, which I think is a good bit of business, and Scott McTominay. I'm not really asked, he's no Declan Rice. I think this will be an interesting season for West Ham. Maybe they can kick on a bit more, but I don't see it being a brilliant season again for them, unfortunately. And in 11th and 10th place, I've got Fulham and Bournemouth. Bournemouth breaking into the top half of the table. That's not something I think I would have predicted at the start of the season, but I'll start with Fulham. Fulham, I think, are just in for another okay season this season. Possibilities of Mitrovic going, but I think with Raul Jimenez in there, I'm not too bothered. And the Marco Silva stuff seems to have quieted down a bit. If they lose Mitrovic, maybe this might be a little bit high for them. They might be a few places lower. But I see Fulham doing okay again this season. They haven't lost too much of importance, and they haven't gained too much of any significance. So I see them being about the same. Now, moving on to Bournemouth, I really like Iraola as a manager. I think he's a good manager who's ready for that Premier League sort of push and that Premier League opportunity as a manager. And I think he's one that could maybe make it work. Obviously, as a Leeds fan, he was someone I really wanted us to pick up at the end of last season, and we weren't able to do so. But with the improvements that Bournemouth have made, Kirkesh is a really exciting young left-back, Roman Favre, Justin Kluivert, Radu on loan from Inter Milan. I think they look like they've got a really good, interesting and exciting team, ready to play some really interesting and exciting football. And I think that's definitely something we can look forward to this season. So top half finish for Bournemouth. And the two teams I've got finishing outside of the European places are Brighton and Villa. Now, Brighton, I'll start with, and why I think Brighton will finish slightly below Villa. Obviously, Brighton have got the Europa League this season for the first time, and I just don't know about their depth. They've brought in some okay players, João Pedro, Verbruggen, Igor. They've made some decent signings. From free signings as well. I forget, right at the start of the window, Milner and Mahmoud Dahoud came in. But I think the concerning thing is their outgoings. McAllister, Sanchez, it looks like Caicedo might be going. And I think that sort of that midfield that they had that was so strong that's been broken up a little bit, it's going to be difficult to replace that, especially with those new European games in there. And I think Brighton will maybe slightly underperform in the league this season. Maybe they'll have a decent European run to make up for it, but I just think maybe a few Brighton fans might be a little bit deflated with this season. And then for Villa finishing above them, Villa have for a number of years made some really, really ambitious signings and never quite been able to make it work. And I think under Unai Emery, this might be one of the times they can. Moussa Diaby, Pau Torres, Yuri Tielemans, some strong business. And with the finish in the sort of latter half of the last season that they had under Emery, yes, they've got some European football to contend with, But I see Villa being really, really, really good this season, really competitive, and unlucky to break out of the European places. I don't know. I think they could finish in Europe, but I just think those big teams above them will have the depth and the quality in order to finish above them. And now then, finishing in the first European slot in that Europa Conference League spot, I've gone for Chelsea. Now I think Chelsea have again spent big this summer, and I don't actually think it's that big spending that's gonna do them any good. You know, yes, and Nkunku, Disasi, Jackson. There's some good players they've brought in. Robert Sanchez. They've brought in some really strong players. I think where they're going to look better this season is with some of those outgoings and a bit of a fresher feeling within the squad under Pochettino. You know, no Havertz, no Mount, no Kovacic, no Koulibaly, Pulisic, Mendy. These are players that have been at the club for a while and maybe ones that didn't really want to play. I mean, I'm gonna have to scroll down on their departures on my notes here. Aubameyang they've lost. N'Golo Kante, of course, Cesar Azpilicueta. I think it's going to be tough for them. It's always going to be tough when you've lost that many players. But I think Pochettino's in a better place for this squad without so many players. And I really do think that they can maybe get a European finish again this season, which is, let's be real, it's really where Chelsea should be finishing, in those European places. Without Europe to contend with, I think, yeah, certainly a 7th place finish for Chelsea would be reasonable. And then European football, Tottenham and Liverpool we've got in there. Starting with Tottenham, I think Tottenham under Postecoglou, much like Bournemouth, is a little bit of an unknown asset, but it's a manager I like and a really exciting manager that I like. And I really want to see him do well, and I think he will from what we've seen from Tottenham so far this season. I think Tottenham are going to be able to make use of a lot of players that they had at the club and out on loan and things like that maybe they haven't been able to make use of so far under Postecoglou. You know, the likes of Lo Celso and Ndombele, Pape Matar that have been at the club. And not just that, I mean, some of the improvements they've made, James Maddison, Van der Ven, obviously Porro and Kulusevski becoming permanent deals, Vicario, Velith. They've got some quality in that squad, and I really do see them sort of kicking on and doing better under Postecoglou. I think it's going to be a mixed bag as they get used to each other and get used to the system and stuff, but I certainly think it's going to be a positive season all round for Tottenham. As opposed to Liverpool, I'd love to put Liverpool higher, and I think they probably will start higher actually and finish higher, but I think the problem is with what we're looking at the moment, and I can't say Liverpool will finish any higher than 5th place without the players that they have signed or that we think maybe they will sign. They're looking really, really light. I mean, they've lost Fabinho, Henderson, Keita, Milner, Firmino, Carvalho out on loan, Oxlade-Chamberlain in the middle. They're really, really weak in the midfield. And yes, they've brought in Szoboszlai and McAllister, but that's not going to be enough to compete week in, week out with Europa League football as well. I think forward-wise they look really good. Their midfield's not looking strong enough, and their defence is a bit much of the same. You really do think they need a centre-half and a centre-mid in order to start competing in the league. And I think we'll probably see that with Liverpool, and I certainly hope we will. But for the time being, I can't put them any higher than 5th until we see those signings. And that leaves us with the top or the bottom 2 teams qualifying for the Champions League being Newcastle and Man United. I think Newcastle would be the team out of the 2 that I would drop down if we are saying that Liverpool are going to have a better season. I do think Newcastle have strengthened this season, you know, with Tonali, Barnes, Livramento. They haven't lost anyone of real importance, really. They do continue to build. It's going to be tough for them with Champions League football again, with the expectation, and they're currently on a roll, and I feel like we're going to get a hiccup at some point. I back Howe as a manager to work their way through that, but I just think they're not going to be quite as good as they have been the last few seasons. I think they will probably finish in the Champions League spots if Liverpool don't strengthen in that midfield, but I don't see it being quite as exciting as before. And then with Man United, I think Man United's much of the same, really. as any other gone seasons. You know, they've spent some big money, Andre Onana, Mason Mount, Rasmus Højlund, but I don't know if they look that great. I really don't. It's not, you know, they've bought in Rasmus Højlund. You know, I think if they'd gone out and gone, fuck it, 100 million, Harry Kane, maybe I'd be in a different place with Man United. But I just see them having the same issues that they've been moaning about for the last couple of years. Oh, boo-hoo, our owners only spent 200 million this season. What a shame. Yeah, I think another third place finish or a third place finish for Man United is a good start for them, but I don't see them breaking into that top two any time this season. And then to finish off the video, we've got the top two. Drum roll. There's no need. You can see it right there. Man City finishing as title winners again. I just don't see them doing it. I just don't see Arsenal jumping over City. I will start with Arsenal. I think Arsenal look better this season with the signings they've made. You know, with Rice in that middle, I think they're going to look really, really, really good. With Timber with the defence, giving him a bit more cover, and then obviously with I say obviously, I can't even think of it. I'm gonna have to remind myself. You'd think I hadn't even looked at my notes already. What we're looking at? Who at Arsenal? Of course, Kai Havertz at Chelsea. I don't know if Kai Havertz is an immense player, but he's certainly a better player than Nketiah, I think, with Gabriel Jesus out, and I think maybe they can do some stuff with both of those as well now. But I just don't see him being good enough to top City. I mean, we look at City and we think, oh yeah, what a shame they've lost Ilkay Gundogan. You know, that's a really good player, and they have. They've lost Riyad Mahrez, another great player. But then you look at who they've brought in. You know, Josko Gvardiol, Mateo Kovacic. That's a ready-made replacement for Gundogan and a brilliant left back and centre half in Josko Gvardiol. I think we'll probably see him sign a winger before the end of the season. If they don't, I don't think it really matters with Grealish, Foden, and the likes of the players they've got around there. I think they'll be okay. I don't see them coming any less than first place. Erling Haaland up front. What more do I need to say? So that sums it up for my Premier League predictions. As you can see, lovely, all laid out here for you. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Let me know who you think is going to be a little bit different, or where you think I've gone wrong. Let me know how you think your team's going to go, and I will catch you all in another video. Thank you for watching.